Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where imagination floats you softly into dreamland. Breathe, rest, and sleep.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. Take a moment to settle in, gently closing your eyes or softening your gaze, and allow your breathing to slow. Feel the day's weight begin to drift from your shoulders, releasing any lingering worry or tension. In the softly lit space of your mind, notice a gentle warmth unfolding across your body, guiding you deeper into tranquility. Tonight, you will be invited into a realm known as the Fields of Elysium, where the Zephyr Winds carry sweet fragrances and whispers of ancient times. Even before you embark on this mystical journey, sense your breath expanding like a serene tide, flowing in and out with unhurried ease. As you lie there, cocooned in comfort, imagine the hush of twilight wrapping you in a velvety calm, a promise that this story will guide you to a place of peaceful dreams. Inhale deeply, and as you exhale, feel all distractions dissolve, as though they were nothing more than distant echoes. You are safe, you are warm, and you are ready for an enchanting tale that will lull you into gentle slumber. Far from the bustle of mortal life, beyond rolling hills and glimmering seas, a hidden land stretched in quiet splendor under an ever-lilac sky. This place was called the Fields of Elysium, a haven of delicate breezes and rolling greenery that shimmered with the faint glow of perpetual dawn. In this enchanted landscape, wisps of silvery clouds danced across the horizon as if guided by a playful muse. Their presence hinted at the power of gentle winds that carried the essence of the land from one corner of paradise to another. Everywhere one looked, lush grasses swayed like waves upon a summer sea, reflecting an unearthly softness and a perpetual invitation to rest. In the heart of these fields stood an ancient willow tree with branches so laden with slender leaves that they draped down in emerald curtains. A faint shimmer of pastel light traced each leaf's edge, as though capturing the spirit of morning dew. Nearby, a still pond reflected the branches overhead, casting back images of leafy tendrils swaying in unison. Peace reigned here, a quiet so profound that it felt like a whispered lullaby. And from this peaceful stillness, the calm began to spread through the land, woven into each fragrant petal and blade of grass. At the center of Elysium's soft meadows lived a caretaker, known simply as Solana. She was tall and graceful, her presence as warm as a summer's afternoon. Most would never notice her passing by, for she moved with the hush of a gentle breeze. Her attire was spun from clouds and moonlight, threads of mist swirling around her like a shimmering veil. Despite her near-silent step, Solana's gaze was kindly and wise, reflecting centuries of watching over this tranquil domain. Her voice, when heard, could calm even the most restless heart. But she rarely spoke, believing that the hush of nature often carried its own infinite wisdom. One day, as the lavender sky glowed faintly with the approach of dawn, Solana came upon a curious sight near the willow tree. A small bird with golden plumes perched on a low branch, singing a tender melody that wove into the air like ribbons of a lullaby. Its notes rose and fell, filling the meadow with an enchanting hush. Solana paused to listen. The bird's golden feathers seemed to catch the glow of the sky, and with each delicate note, the surrounding leaves quivered like strings of an invisible harp. At length, she reached out her hand, and the bird hopped onto her finger, quieting its song. A trace of delight lit Solana's eyes, for she recognized this as a herald of the Zephyr Winds, a symbol that some gentle shift in the land was soon to take place. Across the verdant expanse, small clusters of white-capped flowers swayed rhythmically, their petals shimmering with faint luminescence. Each bloom was a silent echo of past dreams, for Elysium had long served as a place where wandering spirits found their respite. When the breeze stirred them ever so delicately, these flowers released the most soothing fragrance, reminiscent of soft rain and starlight. It was a scent that had the power to ease troubled minds, and Solana knew the balance of this realm depended on the harmony of these blossoms. Beyond the willow's domain, a winding path wove like a pale ribbon through gently rolling hills. The path led to the far corners of Elysium, where crystalline streams traced their way through meadows dotted with pastel wildflowers. There, in hidden groves, the Zephyr Winds gathered in pockets of silent air, waiting to be summoned. This was no ordinary wind. The Zephyr Winds had a subtle, benevolent magic that whispered in every rustle of leaf and stir of petal. They soothed the land, carried news of distant times, and brought comfort to those in need of rest. Solana took the golden bird into her gentle hands and cradled it as she walked along that winding path. She felt the hush of the morning pass over her, a hush that invited every living creature to pause and listen. With each step, she found footprints of small creatures that lived upon the soft grass, delicate deer with velvet fur, rabbits that slept under moonlit hillsides, and occasional flickers of light from sprites that flitted among the tall reeds near the water's edge. A warmth glowed in Solana's heart as she walked, for she knew all of them found their refuge in these fields, a realm where no distress could linger for long. Over the horizon, a faint glimmer began to form, like a silent dawn blossoming on the edge of the sky. The lilac hue faded into a subtle wash of pastel gold, revealing a wide-open panorama of gently rolling hills that led to the distant boundary of a vast glade. And in that glade stood luminous arches of entwined rose bushes, sparkling with dewdrops that caught the early light. Petals in soft pinks and creams created a natural, perfumed gateway that beckoned the caretaker forward. She could sense the change in the air, a slight electric tingle that came whenever the Zephyr Winds awakened. As Solana approached the rose-arched entrance, The golden bird fluttered its wings in anticipation. The hush of the fields shifted into a barely perceptible hum, as though the wind itself was breathing. Elysium held its breath, ready to release something tender and new into the brightening sky. Stepping through the entwined roses, Solana found herself in a clearing lined with ancient statues of winged figures. Their marble surfaces had grown worn and softened by ages of gentle breezes. Many of these figures had their hands cupped, and in the center of each pair of hands was an empty space where something once might have glowed. The caretaker paused before one statue in particular, noticing a faint indentation in its palms, shaped like a small, round orb. A memory stirred in her mind. An old tale about a crystal sphere containing the sighs of 1,000 gentle winds. Those sighs, once released, could quell any storm of the heart, returning peace to restless souls. Yet for ages now, that crystal had been lost, and the statues stood silently, their purpose all but forgotten. Still, in this moment, Solana felt a quiet call, as if the gentle breezes beckoned her to remember the old ways. At that moment, the golden bird hopped from her hands to the statue's arms and let out a soft chirp. The chirp echoed in the clearing, a timid note that seemed to reach corners of Elysium unseen. A breeze picked up, and with it came subtle whispers weaving through the arches, the grasses, and the leaves. The Zephyr Winds, once invisible, began to swirl in delicate spirals around the statue, lightly brushing Solana's hair and robe. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, the hush so deep that the caretaker felt her heartbeats slow, lulled by the ephemeral melody of drifting air. Then, emerging from the swirl of that gentle wind, a shimmering shape coalesced, softly at first, like a swirl of mist, then solidifying into a crystalline globe about the size of an apple. Within its polished surface, faint spirals of light moved as though dancing to a silent lullaby. Solana knew, as she gazed at this mysterious orb, that she stood on the threshold of a quiet miracle. She carefully lifted it, cradling it in her palms the same way she had cradled the golden bird moments before. The bird chirped again, and Solana sensed that the orb belonged in that very indentation upon the statue's outstretched hands. Approaching with reverent steps, she placed the crystal sphere in the statue's cupped marble palms. The sphere settled into its cradle with a soft glow, a resonance that vibrated through the clearing. Tiny motes of dust lifted from the statue's surface and danced in sunlight, and as they floated away, the orb hummed with a low, soothing tone. It was a sound of rest, a sound that carried the memory of countless gentle dawns and velvet nights. With the orb restored, the caretaker felt a tender shift in the atmosphere. The Zephyr Winds began to stir more earnestly, weaving ribbons of air around each statue in the clearing. In response, the polished stone seemed to glow. From statue to statue, a slow illumination traveled like the lighting of one lantern after another. Marble wings glistened, capturing the gentle sunrise. All of Elysium seemed to awaken with a vibrant hush, a paradox of quiet energy filling the land with renewed magic. On the horizon, lavender clouds parted, revealing a shimmering patch of sky that resembled mother of pearl. Light spilled onto the grassy fields, turning each blade of grass into a slender mirror that reflected the heavens above. Solana stood still, listening. While her outward composure was calm, her heart brimmed with a joyful peace. Here, in Elysium, time was fluid, measured not by clocks, but by the slow blossoming of new wonders. Now, as the statues glowed gently, she could feel that the ancient harmony was weaving itself back together. This was a land that existed in perpetual balance, and even the softest shift in energy could bring forth an entire season of sweetness and hush. She glanced at the golden bird perched on the statue, still as an ornament, as though guarding the newly replaced orb. Far across the fields, a small figure ambled into view. A young fox with fur so white it seemed silver under the morning light. The fox approached cautiously, ears perked, tail swishing through the soft grass. Perhaps drawn by the new hum of harmony, it ventured nearer, nose lifted to catch the comforting breezes. When it reached the clearing, the fox circled the caretaker, then looked up at the glowing crystal sphere with wide, curious eyes. It drew closer and let out a small, almost inaudible bark, as though in greeting. Solana leaned down and offered her hand, allowing the fox to nuzzle against it. An unspoken bond formed in that instant, a quiet communion shared beneath the watchful gaze of the statue. Now the Zephyr Winds picked up again, swirling around Solana and the fox with a playful ripple. It was as if they beckoned them onward to follow a hidden current through Elysium's meadows. Accepting the silent invitation, Solana began walking once more, and the fox trotted by her side, tail waving in a fluid dance behind it. As they left the clearing, the golden bird took flight, gently trailing overhead, guiding them toward the wilder, far-reaching corners of the land. With each step, petals fell lazily from the rose arches, drifting in the wind like tiny pastel boats on an invisible stream. Their path continued beside winding waterways and over gently sloping hills. Everywhere, meadows spread out in quilts of soft color, from pale lavender to the faintest blush of pink. The hush of Elysium lingered, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the quiet scurry of a rabbit darting through the grass. In the distance, a series of small waterfalls glinted, the cascades shimmering with droplets that sparkled like crystals in the daylight. Closer and closer they drew, the air turning cooler and fresher. A gentle mist sprayed from the falling water, kissing their faces with a welcome hint of morning dew. At the base of the waterfalls lay a tranquil pool encircled by polished stones. Moss crept across those stones in intricate patterns, as though embroidered by hands unseen. Star-like flowers grew between the cracks, blossoming in perpetual bloom. Solana paused here, sensing the air's gentle swirl. The water was so still below the cascading falls that she could see her own reflection, along with the reflection of the fox and the shimmering bird. Her reflection wore a soft, serene expression, as though the calm of Elysium was finding its way into her very soul. By the water's edge stood a cluster of tall reeds, their slender stalks rustling in the breeze. A hush fell over the waterfall's lively song, and in that moment, from among the reeds emerged tiny lights, sprites, translucent and glowing with pastel hues. They fluttered around Solana like drifting embers, swirling in a playful dance. The fox watched them, head tilted in curiosity, while the golden bird circled overhead, chirping softly. One sprite, glowing a tender green, hovered close to Solana's hand and rested there, its touch cool and comforting. She felt a gentle tingle spread through her fingertips, an intimate reminder that the land thrived in unity with all who walked here. Elysium's Zephyr Winds whispered secrets of old times, of epic lullabies once sung by the ancients that had the power to ease mortal minds into deep, healing sleep. As Solana listened, the soft swirl of air caressed her ears like the lightest of touches. She sensed the stirring of a lullaby, one that rose not from any single voice, but from the synergy of wind, water, and the countless delicate lives in Elysium. If she closed her eyes, she could almost hear the melody weaving through the trees, across the pond, and into the silent sky. Gently, Solana and her companions continued on, leaving the gleaming waterfalls behind. The hush of the Fields of Elysium grew even deeper, as though calling them toward a private sanctuary. Eventually, they reached a small rise in the land where a natural amphitheater had formed, a circle of ancient trees whose branches wove a living canopy overhead. Soft, golden motes of light drifted between the leaves, painting dappled patterns on the mossy floor below. In the center stood a stone altar, worn smooth by time. The swirling breeze guided them gently to this spot. The fox sniffed around the altar's edges, and the golden bird perched on a low-hanging branch, as if taking its rightful seat for a momentous event. Solana approached the altar, laying her hands on its time-worn surface. A soft glimmer of recognition passed through her eyes. She recalled stories of how the ancients once gathered here, summoning the Zephyr Winds to offer blessings of deep rest and sweet dreams. The energy in the air felt comforting, like a warm blanket woven from the threads of centuries of peaceful intentions. Another gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and a swirl of pastel light danced around Solana's feet. She glanced down to find a woven garland of leaves and flowers drifting at her ankles. Leaning over, she picked it up with delicate fingers. The garland glowed softly, the blossoms bound together by living vines that pulsed with faint luminescence. It smelled of moonlit gardens and fresh morning dew. Solana sensed it was a gift from the Zephyr Winds themselves, an invitation to continue the ancient rite of calling forth restorative peace With reverence, she placed the garland upon the altar. At once, the air shifted. A breath of wind circled through the amphitheater, stirring every leaf into a soft rustle. The golden bird let out a melodious cry, echoed by the gentle chime of water droplets falling from distant leaves. The fox stood at attention, ears forward, tail still. Then, slowly, the canopy of leaves above began to shimmer, as though lit from within by drifting starlight. The swirl of pastel lights around her intensified, growing into a shimmering dance that filled the entire clearing. In that hush, Solana raised her gaze to the leafy vault overhead. She could feel a surge of comforting energy, a lullaby that seemed to gather in the hush, building in gentle waves, and, in a voice as soft as a mother's hush to a sleepy child, she began to hum. The melody was ancient, passed down through the breezes themselves. Quiet notes, simple and flowing, stirred the light that wove around her, the fox and the watchful bird. The humming spread through the amphitheater, echoing in the hollows of the old trees, resonating with the living world all around. Soon the swirling lights converged in a subtle stream, drifting toward the center of the altar. They coalesced into a shape reminiscent of a small, luminous harp. It was barely more than light and a soft outline, but the strings glimmered in ephemeral brilliance. Solana continued to hum, and, as though responding to her melody, the harp's light strings vibrated. A gentle chord arose, weaving itself seamlessly into her lullaby. The synergy of hum and chord lifted into the air, painting the amphitheater in a tapestry of resonance so comforting it felt like being enveloped in a feather-light embrace. Gradually, the fox relaxed into a curl of soft fur at Solana's feet. The golden bird perched in stillness, eyes half-lidded, lulled by the lullaby echoing in the hush. Even the ancient trees seemed to exhale a tender sigh, their leaves relaxing into a near motionless state. The hush of Elysium deepened, and with it came a wave of serene drowsiness that touched every living creature near and far. It drifted across the rolling meadows and quiet ponds, reached the distant arches of roses, and wound itself around the statue with the crystal orb, instilling all of Elysium with a gentle invitation to rest. When the humming finally faded to silence, the harp of light glowed a moment longer, then dissolved back into drifting motes. The wind slowed to a mere whisper, an echo of comfort that settled across the realm. Solana lowered her head, her eyes reflecting the calm that enveloped everything around her. The fox remained curled, breathing softly. The golden bird fluffed its feathers, as though nestling in a cozy nook. It was as if all Elysium had been rocked into a soft, slumbering hush. Satisfied that the harmony was restored and strengthened, Solana walked to the edge of the amphitheater. She gazed out across the fields, which now rippled in lazy waves as a gentle breeze traced across them. Somewhere in the distance, a nightingale began a slow, dreamy trill, the perfect lullaby for the hush that had overtaken the land. The caretaker allowed herself a final glance at the radiant clearing before leaving, stepping quietly so as not to disturb the fox's rest. The golden bird circled overhead in farewell, then flew off to greet the lingering day. Time is unhurried in the Fields of Elysium, and the boundaries between day and night are blurred in this perpetual twilight of pastel glow. As the caretaker slipped away, a veil of mist gradually softened the landscape, as though tucking it in for a long, nurturing slumber. Soft rays of lilac light caught the drifting mist, turning it into a tapestry of shifting hues. The hush deepened yet again, inviting creatures of every kind to pause in that serene stillness, gently coaxed by the lullaby that lingered in the memory of the breeze. When Solana reached the willow tree, she lingered beneath its sweeping branches, letting the soft leaves brush her skin. She felt a sense of completeness, knowing the Zephyr Winds and the Fields of Elysium rested in a renewed equilibrium. In her heart, she carried the lullaby's echo, a promise that the realm's quiet magic would endure, offering solace to any wandering soul who might stumble upon this hidden paradise. With that thought, she settled herself in the grass by the willow's trunk, letting her own eyelids drift closed, a caretaker, now cradled by the land she watched over. As calm descended on Elysium, the hush radiated outward like ripples on still water. The gentle breeze strummed the branches, carrying the faint strains of the lullaby far and wide. Every petal, every blade of grass, and every ripple on the pond glowed with contented rest. Stars, though barely visible in the perpetual twilight, shimmered overhead, winking in gentle approval of the realm's abiding peace. The fox remained in its snug nest beneath the canopy of ancient trees, and the golden bird roosted among high branches, lulled into a soft doze by the hush of the new morning. In this tranquil land of endless serenity, where quiet wonders unfolded in gentle succession, night was no more than a tender hush, and day was a glimmer of dawn perpetually on the horizon. The Zephyr Winds, now fully awakened, stirred only enough to nurture the hush, never to disrupt it. They lived to caress and to comfort, guiding every living soul toward the soft realm of healing dreams. And so, for all who inhabited this domain, and for those who might only wander here in dreams, the Fields of Elysium were a cradle of boundless rest, a sanctuary meant to soothe hearts until they sang with the harmony of the wind. Now, dear traveler, let the echoes of Elysium's calm envelop you, feeling that same hush drawing across your body, coaxing your eyelids to grow heavier, your thoughts to grow quieter. Breathe in a warm wave of comfort, and exhale tension, worry, all the noise of the day. Imagine the gentle shimmer of the Zephyr Winds, brushing over you like the softest of blankets. Each moment, you can drift a little deeper, allowing the hush of those rolling meadows to cradle your tired mind. Soon, you find yourself on the brink of a dream, a blissful space where soft breezes carry you into sweet rest. Let any lingering worries drift away, replaced by the melodic hush woven through your senses. A hush as nurturing as the caretaker's lullaby. Feel your body sink into the warmth beneath you, growing heavier and more relaxed with every breath. The quiet magic of Elysium is with you now, a gentle swirl of comforting air that touches your shoulders, your arms, your hands, flowing downward with soothing ease. Notice the softness that wraps your legs, cradles your feet, and gives them permission to simply let go of all tension. The hush whispers around you, reminding you that there is nothing more to do, nowhere else to be. This is your moment of rest. In the realm of half sleep, you can already sense the gentle lullaby continuing, drifting in from unseen corners. Let it carry you like a leaf on a calm stream, taking you deeper into the land of dreams. If any thought emerges, regard it as a small cloud passing across a lilac sky. Then watch it fade into the horizon. With every exhale, you settle further into stillness, soft and receptive, letting the gentleness of Elysium envelop you in its timeless peace. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well, and may the Zephyr Winds guide you to soft and healing dreams.